We have a lot of people coming on, and we're so excited that you're here. We have some special guests, and we're going to give people a little bit more time to come on. But while people are coming on the call, we want to hear from you why you're here, what compelled you to join us today. So if you would not mind going to chat, let us know how come this topic is interesting to you today. So go right to chat. Let us all see it. We have two dynamic speakers. We have a fun topic today, and we want to know why you're here today specifically. And Asia and Kat, you can both let us know too. So thank you. Yes. Because you accepted the invite as well.
Oh, great.
Nobody twisted your arm. It was optional. I hope nobody
That's
twisted your
exciting,
arm.
Michelle. And I want to be writing more about food. And I once met a New York Times. She's a food critic for the New York Times. And I asked her advice, and she just said, just start writing, just start doing it. There's so many outlets now. And she's been doing it for, I think, 40 years. Her name is escaping me right now, but she's one of the biggest food critics in the world. And I was so excited just to have a few minutes of her time. And her advice was just do it. Like, just start doing it. Like, don't wait around to be better or to have an audience. Just start doing it. And I thought it was such sound advice.
Yes, that is really good advice. And there are many very well-known published authors that would give you that same advice, that you just have to do it. You just have to start writing and write every day. And so I'm glad you picked up on that, Kat. Thank you. And Shelley, starting a new career at 50. And if you haven't seen our blog post about career reinvention after the age of 40, go ahead and look at that, because there are some really great pieces of advice in that you can follow. But you can reinvent at any age. Some of you who know me know that I reinvented a part of my life about 3 years ago and became a nationally ranked fencer. So I just decided I was going to add a new sport to my life and reinvent that way. Asia, thank you for being here today. Nancy, an encore to being a CPA. Oh, that's so exciting, because you've already had one great career, and pivoting off of that, you have so many things you can offer. I promise you. So nice. Thank you. So I'm curious to see, you could do this by raise of hand. You can also put this in. Oh, Rita left an ER nursing, 60, building my own life wellness coaching. Good. Yes. If you have that ER nursing behind you, I am impressed, and I'm glad you're pivoting, because you probably got burned out the last 5 years. Yes. So welcome. And here's what I'm going to say to all of you. I want to know, you can either respond in the chat or you can come off and raise your hand, and we'll have you speak for just a second. How many of you were taught, like I was, that there are certain things that you cannot earn a living doing? Specifically, the more creative, you cannot earn a living doing that. So get practical, be a CPA, do something, yes, that it's going to pay you, right? And I am here to tell you that that's the topic we're going to address today. Can you really have that creativity? Can you be part of the creative class and earn a living? And I've worked with artists who can sell their paintings at $75,000. I've worked with musicians who sell their music, and that's what they do for a living. So there are all kinds of things that you can do in the creative class. And yes, Shelley, successful ghostwriting. No, that's really a job. I earned my first dollars in the innovation group at Franklin Covey, ghostwriting some of their books. And I was earning a living and taking that home and raising 3 kids off of what I was doing as a ghostwriter. My name never got on the book, but I was paid for my time. So yes. All right. So we have the right audience here today. And we do want to bust that myth that you can be part of the creative class. In fact, there's never been a time in the history of humans on this planet when you were more prone to be part of the creative class and earning what you want to earn than now. There just never has been. And you're going to hear a couple of different sides to that coin. Kat's going to talk about her photography. We'll let her go first. And then Asia's going to talk about her work and how she's sort of pivoting. So you're going to see her actually in a reinvention curve. Is that okay, Asia, if we have you bring in that aspect as well? All right. And Shannon D, if you are on the call, you can see Shannon. She runs operations and legal and client relationships here at Soul Salt. So Shannon's going to keep an eye on the comments. And if there's something that we need to have brought up, let us know. Kat, I am going to look and see if I have to go reboot my email from you. But when you're ready, you let me know and I will
Oh yeah, thanks. And at
bring
any
up.
time you can show those. That's great. I'm so visual, and I sent Lynn over some of my art pieces because I just assume that nobody is familiar with what I do. And so I had I have Lynn showing some of my art pieces of what I do, and it has changed over the years and evolved. So what I'm working on now is completely different from what I started working on 20 years ago. Uh, and so how do let's see, I'm going to exit full screen here.
Yeah, and you can see, can everybody see on the screen now? We have some of Kat's work
This is
on the
what I'm
screen.
currently working on, which, like I said, is much different than what I started working on 20 years ago. So first of all, thank you, Lynn, and the Soul Salt team for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. I have been a photographer for over 20 years now, and I've been a full-time artist for almost 16 years, and this has been my only source of income. So I'm so glad that you said that, just asking if anybody has been told to do something different with their life. And I always, whenever I talk to college students, I always recommend taking business and marketing classes if you're going to go into this field of art. Art is subjective, and that's the beautiful thing about art. I feel that anybody, absolutely anybody, can be an artist. And I do feel that everyone has an artist inside of them, whether it be how you present your food or how you apply your makeup. I do feel that everybody is an artist in some way. And access to social media, I feel like, has changed how we market and access art. I've watched this shift over the last couple of decades. It used to be that you had to have gallery representation in order to really make it as an artist or to have your work seen. And while I do believe that there are absolute benefits to having your work shown in galleries, and because you have access to their clientele and how they sell your art, and just having access to all of that, you also are paying their percentage. They can take up to 60% of your sales. And so I don't really rely on galleries any longer. For that reason, I only team up with galleries kind of when they approach me and ask me, and then if it interests me, then I go that route. It is great to go that route when you are starting off and trying to make a name for yourself. But sometimes you get to a point now with social media and all the different avenues that you don't necessarily need to go that route. And so my advice could kind of work. It looked like we had some writers in the queue here. This advice applies to anyone, even if you're not a visual artist. I feel like you can take this advice, whatever works for you, take what you need, leave what you don't need. So developing your skills, being prolific, continually working and improving your artistic skills and techniques. I'll be honest with you. I dropped out of college and I had a really good job at a young age, and later on found my the person that mentored me at a young age, and he was a college professor, and his advice to me was the same advice that Ansel Adams gave to him. And I took it very literally. I was debating in my 20s on going back to school, and he told me not to. He told me they could not teach me how to have an eye in school, and that I had already had that eye. And he He basically told me to be prolific, invest in equipment, and continue to shoot. And that is what I did. So just continuing to improve your artistic skills, techniques, take classes, attend workshops, practice regularly, and hone your craft. And I frankly got bored with my work and started shifting in a different direction and focusing on a different medium. That's okay to do. And also with writing, that is something that interests me, and I am focused on that now as well. So it's okay to add different things to your portfolio and not just focus on one thing. It's okay to focus on also multiple things. And so I am doing mixed media and photography, and I'm also doing writing at the same time as a freelance writer. Building a strong portfolio and creating a diverse portfolio to showcase your best work across different mediums and styles. Your portfolio is your visual resume, and it helps you attract potential clienteles and opportunities. My own portfolio is always improving and changing, and it's okay to pivot and change directions. And I think Asia is going to also talk about that as well. It's completely okay. I was getting pigeonholed as a political feminist activist, and I didn't want to be pigeonholed as that. I wanted to broaden my horizon. So I work on totally different mediums now. I kind of got bored with myself and started to find my own work insufferable at times. And so it's okay to be like, I'm closing this chapter of my art career and I'm going to focus on something else now. You don't have to continue to do the same old, same old. But it's important to build that strong portfolio. Most recently, somebody decided to show my work to somebody. This was like a few years ago. And I realized my best work wasn't on my website. Oh my gosh, keep it up to date because you never know when somebody is going to show your work to somebody and you're not there to show your best work to somebody. So keep your work up to date, and because you never know. Sometimes people are speaking for you, and that's so great that they're speaking on your behalf and advocating for you, but make sure your work is up to date on your website and on your social medias. And mine was not. So I learned a good lesson that day. Network. Connect with other artists, art galleries, art collector potential clients, and expand your professional network. A lot of what I do is networking. It's a huge part of what I do. Attend art events, exhibitions, art fairs, meet people in the industry. You can replace that with whatever you're doing, whether if you're doing writing or if there's something else you're doing, fill in the blank with whatever it is that you're wanting to do with your endeavor. Often it's who you know, most often. So that's a really important part of what I do. Oftentimes when people are buying your work, they're buying a piece of you, and putting yourself out there is one of the most important things you're doing. Marketing yourself. And I know some of us don't want to be in front of the camera. We don't want to be talking. We're like, this is so hard for me. You got to get over that because you got to get out of your comfort zone and learn how to get past that, because so often that is you're marketing yourself, not just your work, not just your writing, not just your art, not just your jewelry, you're marketing yourself. And so that's hard. And there's so many artists I work with and teach them how to talk about themselves, how to talk about their art, how to talk about what they're doing. And that's a hurdle for a lot of people to get over, because marketing yourself is hard. And I know that. Utilize your social media platforms, creating a professional website, participating online in the art communities to promote your work and reach a wider audience. Consider investing in a professional branding and marketing service to enhance your online presence. Staying on top of social media, because there's algorithms are always changing. It's a fast changing market. Because you don't necessarily need to have others sell your work and take a commission, because we have all these tools now that we didn't have 20 years ago. There are people that have been doing what you're doing a lot longer than however long you've been doing it, and also a lot better than how you've been doing it. So go and figure out who they are, follow them, figure out how they've been doing it. That has helped me a lot in my business. Also, Find your own voice though. You don't want to mimic exactly how they're doing it, right? Your authenticity is what makes you special and brings it to the table. I am quirky. I'm a little bit weird. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's perfectly okay because the right people have found me and follow my work and buy my work. My work, my art is not for everyone, like at all. And I'm okay with that. I want the right people to find my work and they're going to be attracted to my work. They're going to find it. That's okay. I'm not creating for everyone to like what I'm doing. And that's okay because you'll find your authentic voice as you're doing this, right? Um, Also, diversify your income streams. So I have slow months. I think all artists, all writers, everything you're doing, you're going to have slow months. So diversify that income stream. So I will teach workshops on those slow months. Also, when I have my really busy months, I set myself up for the slow months. So sometimes I'm just okay with slow months. And I understand that, January and July are my slow months. And so sometimes I just become a fat hibernating bear in January. And I'm like, I'm just going to be okay with the fact that January is a slow month. And maybe I'm just not so busy and I'm going to take time to rest during January and gear up for the rest of my crazy life during the rest of the year. So, yeah, it's not always busy, 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 busy when you're an entrepreneur, when you're an artist, but it's also nice to take breaks because those busy months are really, really busy. And it's nice to be slow sometimes. Um, so I used to do a lot of art markets. Art markets can make you good money. It gets you out there. But they're also exhausting. And it it has its pros and cons. And I did them for 7 years and it was great money, but I'm old and tired now. So I don't necessarily want to do them. But if you have the energy and you can hire on assistants and do them, they're a great source of money. But I'm at a point in my life where I'm just doing things that bring me joy, and those don't bring me joy. So no, thank you. Um, I tell people to, you stay organized. I tell people to take a business class, take a marketing class. Art is a lot of fun and it's therapeutic, but it's also a lot of work. I love not having a 9 to 5 job. I love, only putting 10 to 15 hours in a week as opposed to 40 to 60 to 80 hours. I like working less for more money. For me, it's working smarter, not harder. There's so many pros, I feel like, to working for yourself versus, I don't know how people have a regular job. Um, there's a lot of pros to it. I did have to work and build up my clientele for 5 years while working a regular job. It's not boom overnight. You just have, you know, all this income coming in and all these clients, and it's just so easy. It's not just this, you wave this magic wand and it's done. It took a lot of work to build up my clientele, but once it was there and I had a steady stream and steady people coming in, for me, it was worth it.
Kat, could you talk to that a little bit more about, because all of us who have our own business, we have our story of how we moved from A to B. And I know you go into a little more detail about how you made that transition.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough I was the boss at my job. And so I was lucky enough to be able to do both and build up my clientele. I was also shooting weddings and I no longer do those because, again, doing things that bring me joy. But at the time, I was shooting weddings and, portraiture work. And so I was able to build up my clientele, do that marketing, bringing in the clients, and building my website, building up my portfolio while working a regular job. And at some point, I'm crunching the numbers, right? And seeing I had enough repeat clients and then seeing what my paycheck was at that job and what hours I was putting in at that job versus my hourly rate as a photographer. And I could work a lot less, making a lot more money versus putting 40, 50 hours a week. It just made more sense to quit my job over here and focus on bringing in clients here. And I had enough repeat clients, but it took about 5 years of building up my brand and building up. It took time. It wasn't just a overnight, boom, there's the clients, I'm good to go. If that works for you and overnight, you can just great. But it took time of marketing. Now, granted, this was before Facebook and this was before Instagram was big. You do now have those tools. So it is a lot easier to get in front of audiences than back then. And so this was like 20 years ago. So things are easier now than they were. Because now you have all these tools like, with Lynn and all these influencers that, there's just a lot of tools out there that can help you beat these algorithms. And you have like coaches that can help you expand your audiences. But it just made more sense crunching the numbers. And even now, like I charge more now than I did then. And so it makes sense. But here's the thing. I've had people tell me, I was trying to coach this friend of mine. She's a really talented photographer. It makes no sense to me why she clocks in at a regular job. She makes way less money. She's super talented. She has all the equipment. To me, it makes no sense why she's clocking in at work. But she said not everybody is designed or has the mindset for an entrepreneurship. And she likes the comfort of collecting a paycheck every 2 weeks. And she doesn't have the drive or hustle to set up and work for herself. And that doesn't interest her, even though she could work way less and bring in way more money. So to me, the math doesn't math. Like I wouldn't want to work way more for way less money. I'd want to work way less for that makes more sense to me. But I also understand she likes the comfort of, right. And so I get that. Like I can understand like some people that makes more sense to them. So
yeah,
to each
at Soul Salt, we call it a bridge job, something that you can walk on in the gap between doing what you're doing now and then doing what you want to do later. Yeah. Okay, what else do you want to do to finish up, Kat? What have you not
yeah, so basically staying inspired. So that's my last point, is just surrounding yourself with creativity, seeking inspiration from other artists. So I make sure that I'm following people that inspire me. I just came out of a funk. It's okay to not always be creating. It's okay. You're going to have funks. It's okay to ride through those funks. Whether it's a writing funk, a creating funk, like you're not always going to be prolific all the time. I had about 18 months where there was nothing coming out of me, and that is okay. Just to ride through those waves. There's going to be times you're not inspired, but I do make sure to surround myself with people that are creatives. I have a beautiful studio in a creative space that I can go to. It helps not having it in my house. I understand some people need to have it in their house, but to have a space that's not in my bedroom, that I can remove myself and get into a space that is, it's helpful. And then following and having friends and having people in my world that are creatives that inspire me. And yeah, those are my tips and tricks. And did people have questions?
Does anybody have a question specifically for Kat before we go to Asia? Okay. Hold on to your questions, and if one pops up, and we'll probably have some time at the end. I will tell those of you, in specific, Rita, when you're going from an RN to a wellness coach, for me, I started my coach training in 1998. By 2002, I was ready to brand my company. I'd been going long enough that I had enough clientele to start to brand. I kind of had them help a marketer name us, and they named me Soul Salt. And I worked for another 2 years. It was actually 18 months of intense working. I was at Franklin Covey, being the associate director of innovation for not the associate, I was actually the director of innovation for Franklin Covey Coaching. It's where I met Shannon. She was the support there. And I worked really hard for 18 months to get enough clients so that I could take over the income that I was earning from corporate America, including insurance for 3 children, 3 dependents, and be able to have more money in the bank every quarter. Within 18 months of leaving, I was earning more in a quarter than I was in a whole year at corporate America. So I built up to it slowly, and it was worth it. It was worth it. So Asia, you have a little bit of a different story. We'd love to hear yours, and please come on and tell us, what do you currently do for a living and what are you pivoting toward?
Okay, I'm happy to do that. Thank you for the invitation. And I want to thank everybody for their time and, for being here and their interest. You're probably going to notice that some of the things I'm saying or will share with you will echo what Kat had to say as well. So I'm going to do a little share screen here. So give me a moment. Let's see. This is what I want. Okay. All right. So I've just got a little bit of a, let me see if I can do this up here too. All right, cool. So the name of my company is Asia Rain Designs. I'm Asia Rain, and I create soul-inspired jewelry. And if you want to get a hold of me or just kind of know where to find me, then I just have these little, have this contact information right here. So my website is asiaraindesigns.com. You can find me on Instagram. And then also, if you want to reach out to me, I've got an email address of the same at Gmail. So what I want to share with you is kind of how I moved into this, because moving into the space of doing what inspired me caught me by surprise. I guess that's the best way for me to put it. So yes, you can earn a living doing what you love and doing what you're inspired by. But the way mine began was really kind of, like I said, it surprised me. So my experience began with a desire to fulfill a vision and also this a creative thought that I had, not a desire to make jewelry. What happened was I had planned a trip to Ireland, and I had just gotten divorced, and this was back in 2012. And my divorce was final in March, and this Ireland trip was going to be the same year in September, but I had been saving for it for like the past 4 years. So this was just naturally coming along. And what happened when I was over in Ireland is I went with a group of women, didn't know anybody except one friend. Everybody was from Phoenix. And I was discovering some different freedoms or different like ways I could actually experience life a little differently than being a stay-at-home mom for 25 years and having 6 children and working, like kind of going along that same line of, yeah, I was taught that, you don't want to be an artist because there's starving artists out there. You got to do something practical. And I got married. So even that kind of fit the bill for a lot of what I felt comfortable with. The one thing that I want to make sure is that before I get into this story about Ireland, the thing that I want to share with you is that where I'm going, where I've been, and even where I'm pivoting, I am now realizing has always been with me. And so I've always been a creative. I've always been an artist. When I was, young, the way I learned to draw, I taught myself to draw by listening to the big LP records. Like we had the little record player and stuff like that. And I would put on these big LP records that were telling the Disney stories of like Cinderella or Robin Hood or whatever. And I was using that book to try and copy. So I was doing, like copy what it was that I was seeing. And that's how I taught myself to draw. And that was where I would really engage myself, because I found, like just naturally as a child, really found myself enchanted by what that is. And, my love for horses was there, and I wanted to learn how to draw a horse. And I feel like that was kind of like the forward thought, but more of this creative energy was always there. The other thing that was also there was my desire to communicate. I loved communication. And so I did go to college. I got a bachelor's degree in communications back in 1988. And I was looking for ways to support that communications degree with art. So art and communications were always there. So anyway, I was at the beginning of the finalization of a divorce, and that took a lot of energy. Like that just really emptied my container of what I call, of any kind of creativity. And while we were over there, I was in Ireland for 3 weeks. And while we were over there, what we were doing, this group was, we were actually assisting a group of women in a particular county to help bring their economy back. They'd gotten together and created like a co-op where they were utilizing local resources to make things to actually sell them, because the 2008 buyouts that hit America started in Ireland and then moved to Greece and then hit this, and they just didn't have the generating energy or economy to keep themselves really afloat. So it really leveled Ireland in a lot of ways. And this was new to me. I didn't know. I thought this would be a great trip and we're going to do this thing. So while I was over there, I watched women like utilizing seaweed in different ways, and indigenous goat fibers and what they were picking up, like found objects. And it was fascinating to me. And so near the end of this trip, and I have the example, where is it? Near the end of this trip, I was really fascinated by this hearth mat, and this is what it looks like. It's made out of indigenous goat fibers, right? And I actually was talking to Cheryl, one of the hosts, and I says, hey, this is the coolest thing. How do you do this? How do you make these things? And she looked at me and she goes, that's easy. First graders make those. And I'm like, are you serious? Show me. And so she got the tools and she showed me. And here is where the pivot happened for me. Here's where the light went on and my creative spark got ignited unsuspectingly. Is I looked at what she was doing and I said to myself internally, I can do that. And for whatever reason, that opened up a door that for some reason had just really been insulated for a while. And I really didn't recognize what that statement meant or made until I was on the plane flying home. And my own creative spark just started like booming. And I started imagining like this wall hanging that I wanted to make. And it was going to be this buffalo with all of these fibers, and it was going to have this 3D effect, and it was going to have metal. And I got home and I'm like, man, I know nothing about fibers and I know nothing about metals. I was a pen and ink and a pencil artist, kind of as I was a mom and, whatever it was I was doing. So I actually flew home and decided I wanted to make this wall hanging. It wasn't, I need a new career. I just wanted to express this creative spark. And so I did something that I had the ability to do to explore both sides of this. So what I did is I came home. I was living in a space where there was actually land, and had an opportunity to buy 5 alpacas. And I was like, oh my gosh, alpacas, fibers, same thing as sheep over in Ireland. I will do this because I wanted to kind of create what I had been noticing or what I was aware of in Ireland. And so I bought these alpacas. I got into the alpaca community. I learned how to weave. I learned how to, like work with the fibers. Like this whole thing started happening. And then simultaneously, I found a silversmith that was going to, that was willing to teach me her craft. And because I didn't know the language of either of them, especially in the metalworks, I remember, just telling her one day, look, I know what I'm trying to do. I don't know how to tell you what I'm trying to do. So just teach me everything you know. And from that, it turned into moving from Utah County up to Salt Lake. She and I built a school, and I was one of the first people in the classes. And then I was one of the first instructors. And as all of this was rolling, in my mind, I was still committed to do the right thing and do something of value, that I was waiting for the right job to come along while I was playing over here, and never really took it super seriously. But this wave of creativity, this wave of what's going on, really is what kind of carried me forward. I eventually sold the alpacas and focused in on the jewelry, and that like ability to do what I was already familiar with, which was understanding a partnership between courage of taking steps forward and the curiosity, that initiated it, was actually leading me. And so doing what inspired me, was also bringing in people. And so you heard Kat say, she surrounded herself with other artists and she follows other artists. And that's what I found myself in. I found myself immersing myself in a community mainly because of circumstances, not necessarily intention. And then it became more intentional. And as I was actually working through all of this, there was this opportunity to, kind of think, well, maybe I need to do this as a business. And so I would suggest that even if you're dabbling or playing or whatever, taking classes in marketing, taking classes in business, set your business up correctly from the beginning, that really supported me. Like I got an EIN, even though I didn't, like that helped me get a business account, which helped me keep my account, any income that I got really clean, and things that I, like buying supplies in that account. Like it just made sense to me to keep them separate. And that was actually really an important thing for me to do. So I would actually say, support yourself by doing some really foundational work. And then the other thing that I wanted to share here too was once I realized my why was more like a tapestry than a solid document or a 2D document, I was able to be more at ease with the process, because I was just, sometimes the why got too big, right? And like, not too sure what my why is, but what I was realizing later on as this whole thing was developing was I was able to trust the inspired threads that were coming through, and trust that I wasn't being misled and I wasn't crazy and I wasn't like, what am I doing? But it was actually a layered system. So sometimes in tapestries, you're going to see the fibers or you're going to see the threads, and sometimes they're in the back supporting what the overall picture is. So allowing yourself, if you're the kind of person that really needs to know your why so you can actually bounce back and look at that mantra, that's really good for you to know about who you are and what yourself as an individual. And for me, it took me a minute to realize that didn't necessarily inspire me. Okay, there's my mantra, I know that, but it's not really got the soul that I'm trying to really attach to, and relaxing more and more into the fact that no, it's there, it's just not in front of you at the moment, was really like empowering. I liked this quote too. Everything that you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. That to me is a big courage step. Like really taking the step and having learning those dance steps between risk and reward is very valuable. You need to do it. You're not going to step into any of this without making mistakes, getting feedback, tripping up, maybe not being graceful, but you're learning so much. I learned so much on the whole process because of those things. And just even technically, I can't even tell you how much silver I melted. And that's one of those things that comes along with creating jewelry. The materials are there. I broke stones. I melted silver. I started playing with copper. I've even incorporated gold, like all of these high risk things, like, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't work out? And they don't. Things don't work sometimes. And I think the biggest lesson when it comes to jewelry making was the time that I was actually doing piecework for an artist that I knew that was in Brooklyn. And she needed like 100 pairs of earrings done, which was 200 soldering points, right? And then if there were stones, there was going to be even more soldering points. And she wanted it silver on bronze. And I didn't know that bronze had a whole different retention point for heat than silver did. And there was, I mean, I'm really good at it now, but there was this kind of catastrophic, oh my gosh, I just ruined like 20 pairs here. And now I'm going to have to, like all of the things that came into it. But man, I'm telling you, that was so educational, because I learned the language of that metal and those two metals and how they came together. And so it enabled me to even share that knowledge and teach further and I've really enjoyed learning how to incorporate and share, because again, here's the communication aspect coming forward, and the creative aspect coming forward, and the ideas and the drawing, and how that all started to really come forward. How long did it take me to actually pivot? It took at least 4 years for me to let go of part-time jobs and kind of tripping through things and kind of going through, like money and what wasn't there, moving around. I did some moves that I thought were like, oh, this is a great business opportunity, without really even understanding what a great business opportunity was. But it did take about, I would say 4 to 5 years before I fully committed to it. And it has been really powerful. I also, like Kat was saying, I was somebody that did the festivals and the shows, so much fun. And now I'm at a point where I've recognized there's a lot of work involved in that, and not necessarily the work that I want to put my energy into. I want to actually focus a different way. I love to teach. I teach in Moab. I actually created the program down there. I currently teach at Sundance, and that's really fun to do because of the people that I meet. So it's another income stream. It's another way that I can actually have my product visible. And I'm my product in a lot of ways. I've learned a lot about social media. I've learned a lot about streamlining all of that. And so just wanting to share all of that with you. I wanted to share one more thing here. Okay. So people that are on here today, just because this is such a cool opportunity for me, because you're here, if you would like to visit my website, asiaraindesigns.com, and you enter a code, Soul Salt, you get 20% off the jewelry for the whole month, because March is my birthday month. So I thought, oh, I'll just share that right here. If you see something you like, go for it. If you don't, I'm going to keep adding to it. So, and if you have any requests or any ideas, shoot me a text. I mean, that's not a big deal. You can email me or whatever, but I really, really, really enjoy doing what it is that I'm doing. The thing that I'm going to stop my share here, that Lynn and I have been talking about, I have personally been going through my own version of pivoting. And again, here comes communication. So one of the things that I do that's kind of hand in hand with the classes is I really have this strong desire to do some coaching, because of life lessons, because there's a whole other side of my world that has to do with coming from a very traumatic past that I've healed through, and that I know other people could benefit from. And I feel like the way my jewelry and my art can actually be supportive and evolve can look differently than just being kind of retail mainstream. So that's one aspect of it. But I also love what it is that I have to share. I love the idea of creating courses and seeing people, because I have been working with people kind of on the side as word of mouth, helping them in a coaching perspective, in a coaching manner. And I've even been working on my website. So I have a landing page website, which is www.asiarain.com, which encompasses the jewelry, the podcasts that I host, as well as coaching opportunities, So I'm feeling like I would love to have like some direction and some help in what that looks like. I feel like it's just this really beautiful idea, but it's needing some refinement. And I'm drawing really from the richness of what it is that I've been doing for the last 10 years with the jewelry, in making and creating something that feels even more fulfilling and more interesting to me. Because again, here's where the curiosity and the stepping into even the courage of what is next is really not just kind of tapping me on the shoulder, but it's kind of like waving. It's like, look, here's a doorway, you can walk through it now. And I'm pretty familiar with what it looks like to take the leap. I've done that a number of times in my life. It's not a scary thing for me to take the leap once I get to recognizing that that's my next thing to do. It's always the dance before I could do this, I could do this, I could do that. Little cha-cha can be really distracting. And so that's also something that, as you're in the space of what it is that you're looking at doing, just notice, are you there? Are you dancing that dance? Are you discouraging yourself? What part are you playing in your own curiosity, in your own stepping forward, or your own sidelining? And that would be some really good things for you to look at and ask yourself. But I would say that whatever it is you're looking at has probably been with you all along. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share today. Appreciate you guys listening to me.
It was fantastic. Yeah. And you both have this common thread of just gritting it through.
Mm-hmm.
You could see where you wanted to be. And I had to do the same thing with my coaching practice. There were weeks when it was so painful, like, why is it not here yet? When am I going to get there full time? And you can see that on your faces with Kat and Asia. And so if there's something that you're doing that you want to go for, like Shell, you're talking about writing, Rita, you're talking about the wellness coaching. it will take grit. It will take persistence. And you can keep coming to this offering. It's free so that you can keep getting, I know Lisa is here often. You can keep getting your cup full and know that you can do it. You can make that marathon happen. Do we have specific questions for anybody today?
I have a question. Sorry. I've just sort of joined. So I missed Kat's last bit. So I've only seen Kat's last bit, so I didn't have any questions for her. But with Asia, I have a question for her. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. If you saw yourself as a creative person when you were younger, and then you suppressed that side of yourself as you got older, how do you recapture your creativity? Because I'm really struggling with creative ideas at the moment. I'm trying. I want to do something creative, but I'm really struggling to find out what that is for myself because I've suppressed it for too long.
What a great question. And we'll let Asia go first, but Kat, I know you can answer this too. So go ahead, Asia.
I think the first thing that I would say is I would even look at your sentence that you said that you've been suppressing it and maybe ask yourself, like really start digging into that. Take that sentence, get objective and say, how have I been suppressing myself? And then from those answers, because now you got that out of the way, now you can actually say, ask yourself other questions, not just what inspires me, what's creative, but things that you've brought forward or that you can remember, remember as a child, remember like you enjoyed when you were in high school, maybe you love soccer or like whatever like that, and you're like, but I can't be a professional soccer player. It's like, but what about that did you enjoy? Well, if you really enjoyed, like, say, being on a team, then you're going to go, oh, something that has more people involved instead of a singular thing. Like really kind of getting to be a sleuth on the whole thing, like really giving yourself like an overview of what that looks like is going to help you, first of all, eliminate the sentence of I have repressed this. The one thing I look at for me, yes, I've always been creative, but I didn't look at it like I was suppressing it. I looked at it more like, because I agreed with the role that I said yes to, which was getting married and being a mother, that the creative side was just kind of like, and I like to dabble and it's a good hobby. That's the way I couched it. Whereas I really could have, had I wanted to reframe it and say, oh my gosh, you know what? I've got all this time at home when the kids are at school, and I'm going to really dive into this. That reframe, had I wanted to, could have shifted some things for me in the way I had repressed, right? And using your sentence, that I had repressed accessing those skills or even bringing them more fully into my life. So I would say, like that self-evaluation is going to give you a lot of information, and then really playing, like the curiosity. I'm such a big curiosity fan, but playing with some things and not having it be anything other than feedback, like, and recording that, giving yourself that information is really going to be helpful. I hope that helps.
Yeah. And I would add to that, and then we'll go to Kat. I would exactly segue off of what Asia said and start playing with your creativity and let it show up any way you want it. If you have not been able to let it come out of the closet, let it come out of the closet and just see what it wants to do. We'll go to Kat, and then Shell, we'll see what you have. Okay. So Kat.
I do have answers. What is your name? Who I'm referring to? The person that asked the
My
question.
name's Akbar.
Akbar? Okay, Akbar. Yeah. I have been shooting since I was 15, and I will be 45 on my next birthday, so that you can do the math there. But I am married to somebody who is in their 50s and has not gotten to fully explore their creative side. So I've gotten to watch that. And I will tell you, I have questions for you, Akbar. Am I allowed to ask you some personal questions? Are you still with us, Akbar?
1 second. Yeah, you can ask me. Yeah.
Okay. What is holding you back? Do you have fear around this?
Yeah. I do. Also,
A failure
yeah.
or
Well, yeah, fear of failure. To some extent, fear of success as well, because I don't know if that's going to change me. Am I going to get, you know? I've seen people sort of change when it comes to having a bit of success, where they get a bit too up down. Excuse my language, up down arse a little bit. So that's what I'm thinking. Well, I don't want to change that. I still want to be like sort of level-headed about success. Or I mean, I can't deal with failure because I get really stressed with it.
okay.
So that's the thing I'm scared of, really. Failure
Okay.
more than success.
Okay, so maybe facing your fears around it and then just doing it. I, I
Right.
I would say just giving yourself space to explore whatever creativity you want to explore, and then also facing your fears, because I think that might be the only thing holding you back is your fear. So
Right. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Great.
you're
That's
welcome.
awesome. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kat. Shell, did you want to add to this or did you have a question?
I have a question, but it kind of goes on the same thing. So my issue is fear, fully admitting that. I, in a nutshell, I quit my job, pharmaceuticals, great pay, was told like, don't be creative, can't do it, did it while newly divorced, raising a 6-month-old and a teen, got successful way too fast, got scared. So that's why I relate to that comment there. Self-sabotaged and fired my biggest client. They were 60%, ended up moving back in with my parents. Dad said, hey, need a real job because your 6-figure job in writing doesn't work. So that's the background. Now I sit here and I'm in a position doing amazing, working in my secondary strengths, as I learned from your book, Lynn. And I do amazing, but I'm burnt. So I would love some tips. Kat, if you have some, but Asia, you said you were working and doing this. Lynn, I know you mentioned the bridge job. How do you work something that's in your secondary strength where you're just exhausted by the end of the day while building? Because this time I'm a single mom. I don't have the opportunity at this moment to do that. And if I do, my fear is much bigger than that because she's 16.
So let me just jump on that one really quick.
Thank
'Cause I
you.
did that. I was teaching and I was so burned out. I'd had 15 years of teaching. And I had people here in a red state, if you're from the US, who were starting to persecute me because they suspected I was gay. So the pressure pot was very hot while I was an educator, that I could not stay where I was. And that's all I knew. That is all I knew. And I had 3 children that were dependent upon me. And so I understand your fear on some way, and I understand the constraints. And I got to the point where I had to find a bridge job. I had to find something where I wasn't burned out. I met with a millionaire and he was my mentor, and we created a job for me that gave me a 6-month bridge that let me leave teaching. I earned what I was earning, and I created a way for me to find, and I found a business coach. That was the first time I got exposed to coaching. I eventually became one. I didn't know that was where I was going to go, but I found a coach who coached me into the process of getting my next job, which was to be a writer and developer for Franklin Covey, and I could use my instructional design. So what was said earlier, if everything that you need is inside of you and you can use it, I would look at a bridge because I needed something that gave me breathing room where I could do it and it wasn't killing me because I wasn't working from pseudo strengths. It was exploratory, and I gave myself 6 months. And then as I was halfway through that when I started to look for the next job and found it before the 6 months were over. So that's one way. And I wanted to just jump in because I have done what you're trying to do. And I'm glad you have the book. Shannon, would you put the book in the chat? Because some of you may not know where you're going next. And that's okay. You don't have to have it decided. If you need a starting place, get my book and it will introduce you to you and all the pieces of you that you're going to need to reinvent with. So let's go to Asia and then Kat on this one from Shell. Great questions, by the way, you guys. Thank you.
I'm really glad that Lynn answered that. It's such a great, like, kind of solid segue. Like, there is so much gold in what she offered, especially in the way that it matches your current circumstance, right? So sometimes getting creative about where you're going and how that bridge works, especially since you're supporting children, right? Did you say you had a 16-year-old? Am I okay?
Yes.
So there is a 16-year-old in your life that is also witnessing some things, right? And I'm a big fan when it comes to the children, really not like really incorporating them in a way that it would be like age appropriate. Like it could be a lot of fun for you to, I don't know if did you say it's a daughter? You have a daughter that's 16? Just to even, in a way, bounce off ideas. What sounds fun? Not for me, but if you were in my circumstance or whatever, if you could create kind of an interesting interplay there, not only are you going to find that you're getting yourself inspired because you're now in a play mode of your own self, right? And you might start finding that you're giving yourself ideas that you hadn't really allowed yourself because you have to be so technical. And this is so important. And, I got to adult through this, and it's kind of fun to have that fresh, younger participation there that is also not so critical for her to feel like she's trying to help you solve a job or solve a problem. It becomes more of a play. And especially if you're working into something that is creative and you've done creative things before, being a ghostwriter and that kind of thing, that could feel really refreshing. And it may not mean anything. Like you might have all of these ideas and you could say, wow, that was a fun exercise. And, like it finds its way into the rubbish can, right? And that's fine. That's really fine. The real value is kind of, opening up those windows and shaking out, like letting that breathing room kind of be there and recognizing that I really, really I benefited so much by looking at this whole thing as a tapestry. Like if you've ever gotten really close to any kind of weaving, the thing that is really impressive to me that I taught myself or that I learned as I was going through this whole thing with the fibers and the alpacas and the weavings and all of that thing was that there is a structure in place that you've got to have there that helps create the pattern for the back and forth that you're doing. And there's actual there's technicality with that. It doesn't just kind of appear. So there's value in both. There's value in the play, there's value in the design, and there's value in the technical, but you've got to give yourself a little bit of that breathing room of the creativity and of the play so that all of the rest can kind of find that space there, and just know that it's always being supported anyway. Now that's kind of a nebulous thing. I hope not. I hope that did kind of add to what Lynn was saying, but that's kind of what occurred to me here as you asked that question.
Great answer. Thanks, Asia. Kat, how would you respond?
So 2 things. One, I can attest to Lynn's book. They created this great book that my spouse is obsessed with and has just devoured. So one thing. And then 2, there's something you said to me, Shell, you're tired, right? Is that what you said? And you're a single mom? Are those the 2 things you said? Okay.
I'm tired to homeschool and single mom to a 16-year-old watching this all.
All right. I was a single mom for 10 years. And the only way that I got through that, running my own business and being a single parent, is that I hired an assistant. That was the only way that I got through those years, because I feel that being tired and being able to focus on what mattered, there was no shame in having somebody come in and help me with what I needed to have help with so that I could focus my energies on other things, because there's only so much of me and I only have so much energy to be able to focus on things. And so my kid's super important, and then having the energy to focus on other things I need to. So there's certain things that I'm not going to have energy to do. And that is where my assistant came in and took things off of my plate, because I didn't have other people to take those things off of my plate. And she was with me for 6 years and until I got married, and she helped me with all the things that I did not have the energy to do. And I made sure that in my budget that I budgeted for her, because that helped my mental health, it helped my business, it helped me be a better mom, it helped me in so many ways, because I wasn't going to be able to, the tasks that I needed help with, that's what she took off of my plate to help me be less tired. So when you said tired, I was like, oh yeah, I remember being tired. And so I would say personally just hire somebody
Great
to,
advice.
to take things off your plate.
Yeah.
So, and also read Lynn's book. So,
So here's what we're gonna do. Asia and Kat, hurry and put your contact where you'd like people to follow you. I know you've sort of mentioned it, but I would encourage you, if you have more questions, to feel free to send those to Kat, Asia, or myself. Some of you, I know, I recognize you, Shell, I recognize you. We've gone back and forth on Instagram. Please feel free that you can reach out in between sessions. You are not alone. One of the reasons that we do this every month is to be here as an island of sanity and solidarity with you. And so keep coming back, Lisa. We're so excited every time we see your face. So know that you have a place to land here. And again, for those of you who need to know, you don't have to have it all clarified to start reinventing. You just need to start taking steps on what will I do next? And how can I know myself better? And what will I experiment with? And we're so glad you joined us today. Again, reach out with questions. Some of you will get to see next week or next month. And in the meantime, be well, be sane, and be courageous. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.